At 9:42 on a Wednesday morning, somewhere above the Taiwan Strait at 22,000 feet, a People's Liberation Army Air Force J-16 strike fighter pulled into a hard left bank and began closing on a contact its ground controller had flagged 20 minutes earlier. The contact was a United States Navy P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, fat and slow and deliberate, cruising at 260 knots on a routine surveillance track that Beijing had been objecting to, loudly and officially, for the better part of a decade. The objections had not changed the flight schedule. The J-16 pilot had been given a different kind of instruction today. The orders, as the pilot understood them, were simple and satisfying. Intercept the American aircraft, close to within a distance that would make the point unmistakably clear, and force the Poseidon to alter course or depart the area. Beijing had decided that a sufficiently aggressive, close approach, not quite the kind of thing that makes incident reports, but close, would send a message. Demonstrate resolve. Show that the People's Liberation Army could contest the airspace. The pilot had trained for this. He was good at it. He closed his throttles slightly, adjusted his heading, and began calculating the intercept. What the pilot did not know, and what Beijing's planners had apparently not fully considered, is that the P-8A Poseidon is not primarily an aircraft. It is a flying intelligence collection platform that happens to also be an aircraft. The distinction matters enormously. A P-8A conducting routine surveillance over the Taiwan Strait is not watching China the way a tourist watches a museum, passively, politely, at arm's length. It is listening. Its AN/APY-10 surveillance radar was painting a detailed surface picture of everything within 250 miles. Its AN/ALQ-240 electronic intelligence system was cataloging every radar emission within range. Its acoustic processors were correlating data from sonobuoys dropped hours earlier. 7 mission systems operators seated at consoles in the aircraft's main cabin were managing a data collection operation of extraordinary sophistication, and every byte of that data was being transmitted in real time to processing nodes whose locations are not publicly discussed. The J-16, closing from the northwest, was, from the moment it activated its N011M bars radar for the intercept, no longer threatening the P-8A. It was volunteering for a technical interview it didn't know it had signed up for. Here is where the story requires some honest calibration. The J-16 is not a joke. This point deserves emphasis before the humor begins, because the humor in this story comes from behavior and decision-making, not from dismissing Chinese aerospace engineering. The J-16 is a 4th-generation plus strike fighter with genuine beyond visual range capability, an AESA radar upgrade path, and weapons loadouts that include the PL-15 air-to-air missile, a round that the US Air Force has publicly described as a genuine concern. The aircraft that the pilot was flying on this Wednesday morning represented decades of serious engineering investment and was, in the hands of a trained operator, a capable platform. The problem was not the aircraft. The problem was the plan. The P-8A had been monitoring its own electronic environment continuously since wheels up from Kadena Air Base 4 hours earlier. The AN/ALQ-240 system had been running its passive collection from the moment the aircraft entered the Strait's airspace, cataloging the shore-based surveillance radars, the surface search systems on the planned surface vessels below, and the emissions from the 2 J-10 fighters that had been shadowing the P-8A at a respectful distance since 0815. Those J-10s had been professional. They flew standard intercept profiles, maintained separation, and communicated on frequencies the mission systems operators had logged within 90 seconds of their appearance. The J-10 crews understood the geometry of the encounter: U.S. aircraft in international airspace, Chinese fighters establishing a presence without creating an incident. It was a mature, practiced routine. The J-16 that appeared at 9:42 was not doing the mature, practiced routine. The mission systems operators recognized the difference almost immediately. The J-16's N011M radar came up in active mode at a range of 61 nautical miles. Not the passive tracking mode a shadowing fighter would use, but an active illumination that was aggressive in its geometry and intent. The contact was logged, classified, and flagged as priority within 4 seconds. The electronic intelligence operator at Station 3 noted the radar's specific emission parameters: pulse width, pulse repetition frequency, scan pattern, and cross-referenced them against the library. The match came back in 11 seconds. The library entry included not just the radar's technical characteristics, but its known engagement modes, the ranges at which it typically transitioned between search and track, and the emissions profile of the PL-15 missile system's associated targeting sequence. The P-8A crew acknowledged the new contact with the calm of professionals who had spent their careers doing exactly this. The aircraft commander noted that J-16's approach vector, ran the intercept geometry mentally, and determined that the fighter's current profile would bring it to within approximately 50 to 100 feet of the Poseidon's fuselage, inside the distance that U.S. and international aviation safety standards define as hazardous. She noted this fact with the same tone of voice she used to call for fuel checks. She was not alarmed. She was annoyed in the specific, professional way that competent people are annoyed when someone else's poor decision is about to create paperwork. This is a good moment to discuss the vulnerability window honestly, because there was one, and it was real. The P-8A Poseidon is a maritime patrol aircraft derived from the Boeing 737 commercial airliner. It weighs approximately 85,000 kilograms fully loaded. Its maximum speed is approximately 900 kilometers per hour. It has no self-defense weapon systems fitted externally. It carries an AN/AAR-54 missile approach warning system and AN/ALE-47 countermeasures dispensing system, chaff and flares, which are meaningful defensive tools against certain infrared-guided threats at range. But the fundamental reality is that a P-8A in the cruise at 22,000 feet is not a warship. It cannot accelerate away from a closing fighter. It cannot maneuver at 9 Gs. It cannot engage and intercept an aircraft. Its defensive options are procedural and electronic. And every crew member who has ever flown one knows this with the same quiet clarity that a surgeon knows they cannot outrun a scalpel. The nearest U.S. fighter coverage at the moment of the J-16's intercept was a pair of F-35Cs from USS Ronald Reagan, operating approximately 180 nautical miles to the northeast. At military power, response time to the P-8A's position was on the order of 12 to 15 minutes. The P-8A had no dedicated fighter escort on this track. This was not unusual. Poseidons routinely fly surveillance missions without assigned fighter cover, relying instead on the geopolitical reality that deliberately harming a U.S. government aircraft in international airspace would be an act of war with consequences that no rational planning staff wants to calculate. The deterrent is not the P-8A's own defensive systems. The deterrent is everything behind the P-8A. But deterrence is a political construct, and political constructs have edges. At the edge, the safety of the aircraft and its crew depended entirely on the intentions of a single fighter pilot who was not answering radio calls, was closing at high speed, and had received orders that morning whose exact parameters were not known to the crew he was approaching. At 9:48, as the J-16 closed through 20 nautical miles on its intercept track, there was a genuine 6-minute window during which the outcome depended entirely on what the pilot intended and how far he was willing to go. If the intent was hazardous, a close approach timed to induce severe wake turbulence, or a maneuver designed to force a collision geometry, the Poseidon's options were limited to maneuvering defensively and hoping. The aircraft commander began a gentle climbing turn to the right, increasing the closure, geometry's complexity, and buying time. She transmitted a standard safety call on guard frequency at 0949. The J-16 pilot did not respond. She transmitted again at 9:51. Still no response. The mission systems operators were tracking the fighter's radar in active mode, its closure rate steady, its heading unchanged. For 6 minutes, the most sophisticated surveillance aircraft the US Navy operates was essentially a large aluminum tube at 22,000 feet, waiting to find out what happened next. The crew flew those 6 minutes professionally, without drama, doing exactly what they had been trained to do. It is worth acknowledging that clearly before the humor resumes, because it is true. Those 6 minutes were the only minutes in this entire story where the outcome was not mathematically predictable. The J-16 closed to approximately 400 feet on the P-8A's left side at 0954, matching the Poseidon's airspeed and flying a loose formation position that lasted approximately 90 seconds. During those 90 seconds, the J-16 pilot performed a slow aileron roll in front of the Poseidon's nose, a maneuver designed to display the fighter's weapons loadout and communicate dominance. The P-8A's sensor operators logged the maneuver, logged the weapons visible on the J-16's pylons, and noted the specific configuration. The PL-15 rounds on the inboard pylons were logged with particular interest. So was the electronic pod on the centerline station, a system that the intelligence library had flagged as a variant of the KG-600 jamming pod, but with dimensional differences suggesting a developmental configuration that had not been previously cataloged. The J-16 pilot had flown within 100 meters of a US Navy surveillance aircraft in order to show it his most sensitive electronic warfare equipment at close range. This is, from the perspective of intelligence collection, roughly equivalent to handing your diary to a journalist and then asking them not to read it. The mission systems operator at Station 5 rotated her camera system and began recording. High-resolution imagery. Every line, every antenna, every aperture on the pod's housing was captured in detail sufficient for analysis. The data was flagged immediately and began transmitting via satellite link before the J-16 had even completed its roll. Within 12 minutes, analysts at 3 separate processing nodes were beginning preliminary characterization of a system the U.S. intelligence community had been trying to image for 18 months. The J-16 pilot's display of resolve had delivered the equivalent of a detailed technical briefing to the people most interested in receiving one. The aileron roll complete, the J-16 pulled to within approximately 150 feet of the P-8A's left wingtip and held position there. The pilot transmitted on the guard frequency. This time, the transmission was recorded and delivered a statement that the mission systems operators logged verbatim. The statement indicated that the P-8A was operating in Chinese sovereign airspace and should immediately alter course or face consequences. The P-8A crew noted that the aircraft was in international airspace. which it was at roughly 104 nautical miles from the nearest point of Chinese territorial baseline, which is considerably outside the 12 nautical mile limit that international law actually recognizes as sovereign. The aircraft commander did not alter course. The AN/ALQ-240 system was, throughout this entire exchange, running continuously and quietly, the way a very attentive archivist runs, not saying anything, just writing everything down with extraordinary precision. The J-16's N011M radar emissions were cataloged in full active intercept mode: pulse repetition frequency, pulse width, scan azimuth, track update rate, and the specific signature of the radar's transition from search to single target track at close range. That transition signature, the electronic equivalent of a fighter's radar saying, "I have you," was now in the library with a resolution no previous collection had achieved at this geometry. The communications recordings were equally productive. The J-16 pilot had transmitted on guard and on a separate tactical frequency during the intercept. Both transmissions were recorded. The tactical frequency was cross-referenced against known PLAAF air-to-ground communication bands and matched to a channel allocation used by a specific air defense sector whose geographic position was now more precisely characterized than it had been that morning. The radio procedures the pilot used, his call sign format, his phraseology, his reporting intervals, were logged and added to the behavioral profile of PLAAF intercept operations, which is a niche but genuinely useful intelligence product. And then there was the pod. The centerline station pod, the developmental system with the dimensional anomalies that had flagged it as something new, had activated briefly during the 90-second aileron roll sequence. The activation lasted 4 seconds. A test cycle, most likely, the kind of brief self-check that electronic warfare systems run when they come online before the operator decides whether to engage the full system. 4 seconds. The signal's intelligence operator at Station 3 noted the emission in real time, tagged it to priority, and the AN/ALQ-240 collected every microsecond of it. Frequency band, waveform structure, power output, modulation characteristics. The emission profile matched nothing in the existing library. A genuinely new system, or a sufficiently modified existing system to be treated as new for collection purposes. It was logged as first ever collection and flagged for immediate forwarding within seconds of detection. The J-16 had just handed the US intelligence community the first direct emission sample of a developmental Chinese electronic warfare system. At 400 feet of separation, with high-resolution cameras running simultaneously to capture the pod's physical configuration. The pilot did not know this was happening. He was focused on flying his aircraft at a speed and distance from a large commercial-derived airframe that required genuine concentration. The formation, flying itself, was impressive, technically. Holding 150 feet of separation from a P-8A in cruise flight requires real skill. The pilot was good at his job. His job, unfortunately, had been designed by a planning process that did not account for the possibility that the aircraft he was trying to intimidate was simultaneously conducting the most productive intelligence collection session of its entire deployment. At 10:07, 23 minutes after the initial intercept, the J-16 pilot received a transmission from his ground controller and began a climbing left turn away from the P-8A. The separation increased rapidly. Within 90 seconds, the J-16 was at a safe distance and accelerating northward. The two J-10s that had been shadowing at a respectful distance throughout the entire encounter also turned northward and followed. The P-8A continued on its track, heading south toward the strait's exit. The aircraft commander noted the J-16's departure with the same measured tone she had used throughout. She asked the mission systems operator for a status on the data collection package. The operator told her they had full recording of the intercept from radar lock-on through departure, complete imagery of the developmental ECM pod, the first ever direct emission sample of its active mode, and a complete ELINT profile of the J-16's N011M radar in intercept configuration. The aircraft commander considered this information for a moment. "Good flight," she said. She asked for the fuel state. It was fine. Now, the intelligence picture from this encounter deserves careful attention, because it illustrates something that Beijing's planners apparently did not model when they decided that aggressive intercept operations were an effective strategy for contesting U.S. surveillance activities in the Strait. The P-8A Poseidon does not need to be chased away to lose intelligence value. If it is chased away today, it returns tomorrow, and it returns with the data it collected during the encounter that drove it away. This is not a contingency plan. It is the baseline reality of how persistent surveillance operations work. A single flight track disrupted is one data point. The intercept aircraft that disrupts it is, potentially, a significantly larger data point. The geometry of aggressive intercept operations creates a specific and ironic problem for the party conducting them. The closer an intercepting aircraft approaches a P-8A, the better the Poseidon's collection geometry becomes. Passive electronic intelligence collection is a function of signal strength, and signal strength falls off with the square of distance. At 150 feet of separation, the AN/ALQ-240 is collecting emissions at a signal-to-noise ratio orders of magnitude better than any standoff collection geometry achieves. Imagery resolution at 150 feet with a stabilized telephoto system is better than anything a satellite pass delivers routinely. The more threatening the intercept, the more the intercepting aircraft is teaching the aircraft it is trying to threaten. This is not an accident to the P-8A's design. It is the design. The aircraft was built to be in contested environments, to operate in proximity to capable adversaries, and to extract maximum intelligence value from every contact. The AN/ALQ-240's passive collection architecture specifically benefits from close approaches. The system's sensitivity is calibrated for exactly this kind of encounter. The people who designed it understood that the aircraft would be intercepted. They planned accordingly. There is a direct, compulsory relationship between the aggressiveness of Chinese airspace denial operations and the quantity of useful intelligence those operations generate for the United States. The more forceful the demonstration of resolve, the more complete the technical briefing. The J-16 pilot had demonstrated considerable resolve. The technical briefing was correspondingly complete. This is not a flaw in the strategy. It is the strategy encountering physics. The developmental ECM pod imagery was delivered to the relevant analysis facility within 40 minutes of the P-8A's recovery at Kadena. The developmental ECM pod imagery was delivered to the relevant analysis facility within 40 minutes of the P-8A's recovery at Kadena. The preliminary report was complete within 6 hours. The full characterization study, drawing on the emission sample and the imagery together, was circulated within 72 hours. The J-16 pilot had, in 23 minutes of aggressive formation flying, advanced the U.S. understanding of Chinese developmental electronic warfare systems by a margin that would have taken satellite collection considerably longer to achieve, if it could have achieved it at all. A week later, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson issued a formal statement condemning U.S. surveillance activities over the Taiwan Strait as provocative and destabilizing. The statement demanded that the U.S. immediately cease these operations. The P-8A schedule was not adjusted. Meanwhile, inside the relevant analysis facility, the team working the developmental ECM pod characterization had submitted a follow-up collection request. They wanted another close look. They were, if anything, hoping the J-16 would come back. At roughly 1800 on the evening of the intercept, Chinese state media broadcast footage of what it described as a heroic confrontation in which PLAAF fighters had successfully forced an American surveillance aircraft to alter course in Chinese sovereign airspace. The footage showed the J-16 in tight formation with the P-8A, the fighter's weapons visible, the American aircraft clearly occupying a position that looked to a casual viewer like retreat. The presenter described it as a demonstration of China's unwavering resolve to defend its sovereign rights. Comments on the broadcast praised the pilot's courage. The P-8A had, in fact, completed its entire planned surveillance track without alteration. The final course change that looked like a retreat in the footage was the aircraft's normal turn to begin its return leg. The mission had been completed on schedule, on track, with a bonus intelligence package attached that had not been on the original mission plan. The crew had landed, debriefed, eaten dinner, and most of them were probably asleep before the Chinese state media broadcast finished. The developmental ECM pod was not mentioned in the broadcast. It had already been mentioned at length in reports that traveled through channels Chinese state media does not have access to. The next time a Chinese aircraft equipped with that system approached a U.S. asset, in the air, on the water, or anywhere else, the U.S. would know exactly what it was, what it could do, and precisely how to account for it. The J-16 pilot's 23 minutes of aggressive resolve had made that possible. The footage on Chinese state media was impressive. The footage the P-8A brought home was more useful, by for now